The morning sun broke over Riverside, California, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that promised a glorious spring day. Officer Sarah Martinez had been awake since 5:30, but not because of her alarm. Rex, her 5-year-old German Shepherd partner, had nudged her awake with his cold nose, sensing something different about this Saturday. Today wasn't a regular patrol day. Today was the spring festival, and Rex somehow always knew when something special was coming. Sarah ran her hand through Rex's thick coat as she prepared his gear. "Big day today, buddy," she murmured. Rex's tail thumped against the floor in response, his intelligent brown eyes tracking her every movement. They'd been partners for 3 years now, ever since Rex graduated from the K-9 Academy in Sacramento with top honors. In that time, they tracked down 12 missing persons, assisted in 37 arrests, and formed a bond that Sarah's husband joked was stronger than their marriage. By 9 o'clock, Sarah and Rex arrived at Riverside Community Park, where volunteers were already setting up booths and stages for the festival. The annual event drew thousands of people from across the county, families, teenagers, elderly couples, everyone coming together for a day of music, food, and community connection. The police department had been given a prime spot near the main entrance, where they'd showcase the K-9 unit and answer questions about police work. "Morning, Martinez," Officer Jim Davies called out, already sweating despite the mild temperature as he hauled boxes of informational brochures. Jim was a good cop, 15 years on the force, but he'd never understood the appeal of working with dogs. "You ready for a million kids asking if Rex bites?" Sarah laughed. "That's exactly why we're here, Jim. Education. Most kids only see police dogs in movies. This gives them a chance to understand what we really do." She began setting up Rex's demonstration area, marking out a space with orange cones where she could safely show off his training. By 10:30, the festival was officially open, and crowds began streaming through the gates. The smell of kettle corn and barbecue filled the air, mixing with the sound of a local band doing sound checks on the main stage. Children ran past with balloons, couples strolled hand in hand, and groups of teenagers clustered near the food trucks, phones out, documenting everything. Sarah's first demonstration drew a modest crowd of about 20 people. She started with the basics, showing how Rex responded to both verbal commands and hand signals. "Sit," "down," "stay." Rex performed flawlessly, his focus entirely on Sarah despite the numerous distractions around them. A little boy in the front row watched with his mouth hanging open. "Can I ask a question?" A woman in her 40s raised her hand politely. "Of course," Sarah encouraged. "What's the most impressive thing Rex has ever done?" Sarah smiled, kneeling beside her partner. "Last year, we got called about a missing hiker in the Angels National Forest. 82-year-old man with dementia had wandered away from his campsite. Rex tracked him for 3 miles through dense forest, up a rocky hillside, and found him sitting beside a stream. The man had no idea he was lost. Rex probably saved his life." The crowd murmured appreciatively and several people snapped photos. A teenage girl asked, "How does he smell things so far away?" "Great question," Sarah responded, warming to the topic. "Dogs have about 300 million scent receptors compared to our 5 million. The part of their brain devoted to analyzing smells is about 40 times larger than ours. When Rex is tracking, he's not just smelling one thing. He's analyzing layers of scent, detecting how fresh they are, which direction they're moving. It's like he's reading a story written in smells that we can't even perceive." As she spoke, Rex sat proudly at her side, occasionally glancing at the audience with what Sarah swore was understanding. He loved these events, loved the attention and the praise. But more than that, he loved working. It was bred into him, trained into him, and reinforced every single day. By 11 o'clock, Sarah had done 3 demonstrations, and the crowds were getting larger. A group of Cub Scouts arrived, their den leader asking if they could get a group photo with Rex. Sarah agreed, and the boys arranged themselves around the German Shepherd, who tolerated the attention with patient dignity. Does he ever get scared? One scout asked. Rex is trained to stay calm in stressful situations, Sarah explained. But he's still a dog, which means loud noises can startle him, and he definitely has preferences. He doesn't like the vacuum cleaner at home. The kids giggled at this humanizing detail. The idea that this impressive police dog was afraid of household appliances. As the scouts dispersed, Jim approached with a bottle of water for Sarah. "You're killing it out here. I think half the town has already come by." Sarah accepted the water gratefully, taking a long drink. The temperature was climbing into the mid-70s, and her uniform was getting uncomfortable. "It's worth it. Look at how these kids are engaging. This is how we build trust with the community." "Speaking of which," Jim said, gesturing toward the information booth, "we're running low on brochures about the Academy recruitment program. I'm going to run back to the station and grab more. You good here for 20 minutes? "Absolutely. Rex and I will hold down the fort." At 11:30, Sarah decided to take a short break herself. The next scheduled demonstration wasn't until noon, and she wanted to grab water for Rex and maybe a quick snack for herself. She secured Rex's leash to a sturdy metal post near their booth, giving him the stay command. He settled onto his haunches, panting slightly but looking content. "Jim, can you keep an eye on Rex while I run to get water?" Sarah called to her colleague. Jim was 20 feet away, organizing brochures on the information table. "Yeah, sure, no problem," he replied without looking up. Sarah joined the line at a nearby concession stand, still within sight of the booth but far enough away that she couldn't hear if Rex made any noise. The line was longer than expected. Apparently everyone had decided noon was the perfect time for refreshments. She found herself trapped behind a group of women debating between lemonade and iced tea, the decision taking an inexplicable amount of time. Back at the booth, Rex remained in his sitting position, the perfect picture of a well-trained K9. Festival goers walked past, many smiling and pointing at the handsome dog. Some stopped to take photos from a respectful distance. A few asked Jim if they could pet Rex, but he politely explained that working dogs shouldn't be petted while on duty. Everything seemed perfectly normal. The sun shone bright, music drifted from the main stage, children laughed, and the smell of grilling burgers made everyone's stomach rumble. It was the kind of peaceful community event that Riverside was known for, the kind of day when nothing bad was supposed to happen. But Rex knew differently. At exactly 11:47, the German Shepherd's demeanor changed. His ears, which had been relaxed, suddenly shot forward. His nose lifted, working the air in quick, analytical sniffs. His entire body tensed, muscles coiling beneath his coat. Something had caught his attention, something important. Rex stood, taking a step forward until the leash stopped him. He whined, a low sound that would have immediately alerted Sarah, but was lost in the ambient noise of the festival. His focus had locked onto something specific, the tree line at the southwestern edge of the park, where a hiking trail disappeared into the woods. A woman walking past noticed Rex's behavior. "Awa, someone wants to play," she said to her companion, assuming the dog's agitation was simply excitement or boredom. Rex pulled harder against the leash, his training warring with his instinct. He'd been told to stay, and stay he would, but everything in his highly tuned senses was screaming that something was wrong. He barked once sharply, but the sound was swallowed by a nearby speaker announcing the next band's set time. Jim glanced over at the bark but saw Rex sitting relatively calmly. The dog wasn't lunging or acting aggressively, so Jim returned his attention to a high school student asking questions about police academy physical requirements. Sarah, still in line, was finally next to order. She was thinking about the afternoon's demonstrations, mentally reviewing which exercises to showcase next. She had no idea that behind her, 60 yards away, her partner was desperately trying to tell anyone who would listen that someone needed help. Rex's training had taught him to alert in specific ways depending on what he detected. The way he was behaving now, the focused stare, the rhythmic whining, the directional pulling, these were all indicators he'd found a human scent trail and an urgent one. But without Sarah to interpret these signals, they meant nothing to the people passing by. The festival continued its cheerful chaos, completely unaware that somewhere in the woods beyond the park, someone was in trouble. And the only one who knew was a dog that nobody was watching. Sarah finally reached the front of the concession line at 11:52, ordering 2 bottles of water and a pretzel. The teenager working the stand fumbled with the cash register, apologizing profusely as he tried to make change. Sarah smiled patiently, but internally she was eager to get back to Rex. She never liked leaving her partner for long, even in a safe environment like this. Meanwhile, Rex's agitation was intensifying with each passing second. His whining had evolved into a series of short, urgent vocalizations, not quite barks, but insistent sounds that any K9 handler would recognize as an alert pattern. His front paws danced against the grass, lifting and placing, a physical manifestation of his desperate need to move, to follow the scent that was overwhelming his senses. The scent told Rex a story. A small human, recent trail perhaps 30 minutes old, movement toward the tree line, then nothing from the festival grounds. The scent ended at the woods, which meant the small human had gone in but not come out. In Rex's experience, small humans who went into the woods alone often needed help. A middle-aged man walking past paused, watching Rex's behavior with mild curiosity. "Hey, officer," he called to Jim, "is your dog okay? He seems pretty worked up." Jim looked over again, this time more carefully. Rex was certainly more animated than he'd been a few minutes ago, but he wasn't showing any signs of distress or aggression. His tail wasn't tucked, he wasn't cowering, and he wasn't lunging at anyone. "He's fine," Jim assured the man. "Probably just wants to run around. These working dogs have a lot of energy." The explanation satisfied the concerned citizen, who nodded and continued on his way. Jim returned to his conversation with a cluster of high school students who were peppering him with questions about police work. One girl was asking about the differences between local and state police, while a boy wanted to know about the detective track. Jim was in his element, enjoying the mentorship aspect of community outreach. At the concession stand, Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from her husband. "How's the festival? Tell Rex I said he's a good boy." She smiled, typing back a quick response while juggling the water bottles and her pretzel. The brief distraction added another 30 seconds to her return time. Rex's focus never wavered from the tree line. To his left, a toddler dropped an ice cream cone and began crying. To his right, a group of teenagers laughed loudly at someone's phone. Behind him, Jim was explaining the academy application process, but Rex registered none of it. Every fiber of his being was locked onto that scent trail, onto the imperative need to follow it. He pulled against the leash with enough force that the metal post shifted slightly in the soft ground. The movement gave him perhaps 6 inches of extra reach, which he used to stretch toward the woods, his neck extended, his body leaning at an angle that would be uncomfortable for any creature less determined. A woman in yoga pants and a sun hat approached the booth, her eyes on Rex. "Excuse me," she said to Jim. "I don't mean to bother you, but is that dog trying to tell you something?" Jim turned, looking at Rex once more. The German Shepherd was definitely more agitated now, but still not displaying any behavior that Jim recognized as problematic. "He's just bored," Jim said with a friendly shrug. "His handler will be back in a minute and she'll exercise him." The woman hesitated, something in her gut telling her this wasn't normal canine boredom. She'd had dogs her whole life, currently owned 2 retrievers, and this looked different. But she also didn't want to be that person, the one who made a fuss over nothing. "Okay," she said slowly, "if you're sure." "Absolutely," Jim confirmed, already turning back to answer another question from the students. The woman walked away, glancing back at Rex twice, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. At 11:56, Sarah finally started walking back toward the booth, balancing the water bottles and her pretzel. She was still about 40 yards away, weaving through the festival crowd. A street performer had set up nearby and was drawing a circle of spectators, blocking her direct path. She had to detour around them. Rex saw her. Even at that distance, even with dozens of people between them, he recognized his handler's gait, her scent on the breeze. He barked 3 times in rapid succession, his trained alert signal. The sound was sharp and urgent, cutting through the ambient noise. But Sarah didn't hear it. At that exact moment, the street performer's sound system blasted to life with upbeat music, drowning out Rex's barks. She continued walking, oblivious. Jim heard the barks and turned, frowning slightly. "Settle down, Rex," he called, using a firm voice. Rex looked at Jim, then back toward the woods, then at Sarah's approaching figure. The conflict was clear in his body language. Obey the command to settle or continue alerting to the emergency his instincts screamed about. Training won, but just barely. Rex stopped barking but continued his agitated movement, his whining, his laser focus on the tree line. By 11:58, Sarah was 20 yards from the booth. She could see Rex now, could see that he was standing rather than sitting, that his posture was tense. A small alarm bell went off in her mind. That wasn't his relaxed stance. But before she could process this observation, a woman stepped directly into her path. "Officer, officer, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I think someone stole my purse from my car." The woman was nearly in tears, her hands shaking. Sarah's training kicked in. "Okay, ma'am, take a breath. When did this happen?" She set down the water bottles on a nearby bench, her attention diverted from Rex to this immediate concern. "Just now, maybe 5 minutes ago. I went back to my car to get my daughter's allergy medicine, and the window was smashed and my purse was gone. My wallet, my keys, everything." "Where's your vehicle?" Sarah asked, pulling out her notepad. "In the north parking lot, the overflow area." Sarah glanced toward the booth. She could see Jim there, see Rex standing near the post. Everything looked secure. This purse theft needed immediate attention. The thief could still be in the area. "Jim," she called out, "I've got a theft report. Stay with Rex, I'll be back in 10 minutes. Jim gave her a thumbs up, not fully turning around because he was now demonstrating to the students how to properly hold a police radio. The woman with the stolen purse was describing her vehicle, and Sarah was writing down details, and Jim was showing the students the radio, and Rex was pulling at his leash with increasing desperation. And somewhere in the woods beyond the park, a small voice was calling for help that no one could hear. At exactly 12:01, 3-year-old Emma Thompson arrived at the festival with her mother, Lisa. They'd been delayed by a minor car issue and were arriving later than planned. Lisa was already apologizing to her friend who'd been waiting for them near the entrance. "No worries," her friend said. "We haven't missed anything. Let's grab some food and check out the booths." Emma wasn't interested in food. Her attention had been immediately captured by something else entirely, a big dog near the entrance. Emma loved animals with a passion that bordered on obsession. She had stuffed animals covering her bed, animal posters on her walls, and could identify breeds of dogs with surprising accuracy for someone her age. But more than that, Emma had what her grandmother called the gift, an almost supernatural ability to understand what animals were feeling and trying to communicate. She'd known when their neighbor's cat was sick before anyone else noticed. She'd refused to go near her uncle's dog at a family gathering, and 2 days later it had bitten someone. She just understood animals in a way that seemed impossible for such a young child. As Lisa chatted with her friend, Emma's hand slipped from her mother's grasp. She took several steps toward the police booth, her eyes fixed on Rex. Even from 30 feet away, even through the crowd, she could see that something was wrong with the big dog. He wasn't happy, he wasn't playing, He wasn't just excited. He was working. And nobody was listening. Emma's small face creased with concern. She understood with the clarity that sometimes only children possess that the dog was trying to tell the grown-ups something important. She could see it in the way he stood, in the direction he was looking, in the sounds he was making. "Mommy," Emma said, tugging on Lisa's shirt. Lisa was deep in conversation, laughing about something, not paying attention. "Mommy," Emma repeated, pulling harder. "Just a minute, sweetie," Lisa said absently, the universal parent response when distracted. But Emma couldn't wait a minute. The dog couldn't wait a minute. Something was wrong and the grown-ups weren't seeing it, and Emma, at 3 years old, was the only person in a crowd of hundreds who understood what was happening. She planted her feet, took a deep breath, and prepared to make the adults listen. Emma Thompson had never been a particularly loud child. She was thoughtful, observant, the kind of toddler who watched more than she spoke. But watching Rex strain against his leash, seeing the urgency in every line of his body, something inside her demanded action. This wasn't a moment for being quiet and well-behaved. "Mommy," Emma's voice came out with surprising force, cutting through her mother's conversation. "The doggy, look at the doggy." Lisa glanced down, her smile still in place from whatever her friend had just said. "Yes, honey, I see the police dog. He's very handsome. We'll go look in a minute." "No," Emma stamped her foot, her face flushing with frustration. How could the grown-ups not see? It was so obvious. Doggy is telling, doggy knows something. Lisa's friend chuckled. "Someone's really excited about dogs, huh?" But Lisa's smile was fading as she looked more carefully at her daughter. Emma wasn't exhibiting her usual excitement around animals, that bouncing, gleeful energy. This was different. Emma's face was tight with concern, almost anxiety. Her little fists were clenched at her sides. "Emma, what's wrong?" Lisa asked, kneeling down to her daughter's eye level. Emma grabbed her mother's face with both hands, forcing Lisa to look directly at her. "Doggy is working, Mommy, like on the TV shows. He's telling them something, but they're not listening." Her eyes were wide and earnest, imploring her mother to understand. Lisa turned her head to look at the police booth. She'd noticed the K-9 unit setup when they'd arrived, had thought it was nice that the police department was engaging with the community. Now she focused on the German Shepherd specifically. At first glance, the dog just looked alert. But Lisa's childhood had been filled with dogs. Her father had bred and trained hunting dogs, and she'd grown up learning to read canine body language the way some kids learn to read books. She studied Rex more carefully, and the longer she watched, the more her own concern grew. The dog wasn't just alert. He was focused with an intensity that was unmistakable. His entire body was oriented toward the tree line, every muscle coiled tight. He would pull forward against the leash, stop when it reached its limit, pull again. His nose was working the air in rapid, analytical sniffs, and every few seconds he'd release a whine that even from this distance sounded urgent. "Stay here with Rachel," Lisa told her friend, already moving toward the police booth with Emma's hand clasped tightly in hers. "Is everything okay?" Rachel called after her. "I don't know," Lisa said honestly. As they approached, Lisa could see the officer at the booth more clearly. He was a middle-aged man in uniform, currently demonstrating something on a police radio to a group of teenagers. He seemed completely unaware of the dog's behavior, or if he was aware, he wasn't concerned by it. But Lisa was concerned, very concerned, because what she was seeing in Rex's behavior wasn't excitement or boredom or even normal working dog alertness. It was the same behavior she'd seen in her father's tracking dogs when they'd caught a scent they needed to follow. It was purpose. It was urgency. It was a dog trying desperately to do his job while being prevented from doing so. "Excuse me," Lisa said, approaching Officer Davies. "Excuse me, officer." Jim turned with a polite smile, the expression of someone prepared to answer another question about police work. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" Lisa pointed at Rex. "Your dog, I think he's alerting to something." Jim's smile didn't waver, but his eyes showed a flicker of the mild annoyance that comes from being told how to do your job by a civilian. "Oh, he's fine. Just getting a little antsy. His handler will be back shortly to give him some exercise." "No," Lisa said firmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who knew exactly what she was talking about. "I grew up with working dogs. Search and rescue mostly, but also some tracking dogs. That's not antsy, that's an active alert." Jim's smile became slightly more fixed. "I appreciate your concern, ma'am, but I've been working with our K-9 unit for years. Rex is just—" "Look at him," Lisa interrupted, her politeness cracking under her growing certainty that something was very wrong. "Really look at him. His body language, his focus, the way he's vocalizing. When was the last time you saw him behave this way?" Jim turned to look at Rex, really look this time, with the full attention of someone being challenged. He saw the German shepherd straining at the leash, saw the fixed stare toward the tree line, heard the rhythmic whining. And for the first time, a small seed of doubt planted itself in his mind. Emma, still holding her mother's hand, had been watching Rex intently throughout this exchange. "The doggy found someone," she said with absolute conviction. "Someone in the trees needs help." Jim looked down at the little girl, then back at her mother. "Look, I understand you're concerned, but there's no reason to think." Rex chose that moment to bark. Not his earlier sharp, alert barks, but a deeper, more frustrated sound. He lunged against the leash hard enough that the metal post shifted another inch in the ground. His front paws left the earth briefly before he landed and immediately tried again. The teenagers who'd been talking with Jim stepped back, startled. One of them said, "Dude, that dog is really freaking out." Jim felt his certainty wavering. He'd been so confident, so sure that Rex was just restless. But what if this woman was right? What if he'd been missing the signs? "Okay," he said, pulling out his radio. "Let me call his handler back." "There's no time," Lisa insisted, her voice rising. "If he's tracking someone who needs help, every second matters. Where's his handler right now?" "She's dealing with a theft report in the North Lot," Jim explained, already pressing the button on his radio. "But she'll—" "How long will that take?" "I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. "That could be too long." Lisa's frustration was palpable now. She turned back to Rex, studying him. The dog's focus hadn't wavered for a second. Whatever he was tracking, wherever his attention was fixed, it was consuming every bit of his trained instincts. Jim spoke into his radio. "Martinez, this is Davies. Can you come back to the booth? We might have a situation with Rex." Static crackled, then Sarah's voice came through, professional but hurried. "I'm kind of in the middle of something, Jim. What kind of situation? Is he okay?" Jim hesitated, suddenly feeling foolish. What was he going to say? That a dog was acting excited and a civilian thought it meant something. A woman here thinks Rex is alerting to something. He's definitely more agitated than before. More static. Lisa could hear the uncertainty in Jim's voice and felt her frustration mounting. Meanwhile, Emma had let go of her mother's hand and was moving slowly toward Rex. The German shepherd noticed her approach immediately. His eyes flicked to the small child, and for just a moment his focus shifted from the tree line to Emma. Emma stopped a few feet away, well out of reach of the leash. "I see you," she said softly to the dog. "I know you're trying to tell them. I know someone needs help." Rex's tail gave a single, sharp wag. His ears swiveled toward Emma, and he released a different kind of whine, softer, almost pleading. It was as if he recognized that this tiny human understood him in a way the adults didn't. "Emma, honey, come back here," Lisa called, but her daughter ignored her. Emma turned to face Jim, her small face set with determination. "My Grammy says animals know things we don't. They can smell things and hear things we can't. This doggy is trying to save someone and you're not listening." The simplicity and conviction in Emma's statement hit harder than any of Lisa's more technical observations. Jim felt something shift in his chest, not quite certainty, but enough doubt that he couldn't ignore it anymore. Sarah's voice crackled through the radio again. "Jim, I need about 5 more minutes here. Can it wait?" Jim looked at Rex, at the German shepherd's unwavering focus on the woods. He looked at Emma's earnest face and Lisa's concerned expression. He thought about all his years on the force, about trusting instincts, about the cost of being wrong versus the cost of being right. "Sarah," he said into the radio, his voice suddenly firm with decision, "I really think you need to get back here now. Something's not right with Rex. He's not just agitated, he's tracking something." A pause, then, "I'm on my way. Keep him secured, but watch where he's focused. I'll be there in 90 seconds. Jim clipped the radio back to his belt and knelt down beside Rex, really examining his partner's behavior for the first time. The dog's nose was working continuously, his eyes fixed on a specific point in the tree line. There was nothing random about his movements. Every pull on the leash was in the exact same direction. "Where's he looking?" Jim asked Lisa. She pointed, "Southwest corner of the park, where that hiking trail starts." Emma nodded vigorously. "Someone's in the trees, the doggy knows. We have to go help." In the distance, Sarah was running. Sarah Martinez had been a police officer for 8 years and a K-9 handler for 3. In that time, she'd learned to trust her instincts, but more importantly, she'd learned to trust Rex's instincts absolutely. So when Jim's voice came through the radio with that particular edge of uncertainty mixed with concern, she didn't hesitate. "Ma'am, I need to leave you with Officer Chen," Sarah said to the purse theft victim, already flagging down another officer who was patrolling nearby. "He'll take your full statement and file the report. I'm sorry, but I have to go." The woman started to protest, but Sarah was already moving, breaking into a run through the festival crowd. People jumped out of her way, startled by the sight of a uniformed officer sprinting past the food vendors and game booths. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Jim had said Rex was tracking something. But tracking what? They were at a community festival in broad daylight with hundreds of people around. What could Rex have possibly detected? As she ran, her hand instinctively went to her radio. "Davies, I'm about 45 seconds out. What exactly is Rex doing?" Jim's voice came back immediately. "He's fixated on the southwest tree line. Won't take his eyes off it. Been pulling at the leash for at least 10 minutes, probably longer. A civilian here, she grew up with search and rescue dogs. She says this is active tracking behavior." Sarah's heart rate kicked up another notch. 10 minutes. Rex had been trying to alert for 10 minutes and no one had noticed. No, that wasn't fair. No one had understood. "Has he barked? Vocalized?" "Affirmative, multiple times. I thought he was just restless." "Jim, Rex doesn't do restless during duty hours," Sarah said, her breath coming faster as she dodged around a cluster of strollers. "If he's alerting, there's a reason. I'm almost there." She burst into the clearing around the police booth 30 seconds later, immediately scanning for her partner. Rex saw her before she saw him, and his entire demeanor shifted. The frustration in his body language transformed into focused urgency. He barked twice, his clear, unmistakable handler here, ready to work signal. Sarah took in the scene at a glance. Jim standing near the booth looking guilty and worried, a woman in her 30s with an expression of deep concern, and a tiny girl with dark curls who was staring at Rex with an intensity unusual for someone so young. But mostly, Sarah focused on Rex. One look at her partner told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't boredom. This wasn't excitement. This was Rex in full working mode, tracking a scent with the kind of laser focus that meant someone, somewhere, needed help. "Talk to me," Sarah said to Jim as she moved quickly toward Rex, her hands already working to unclip his leash from the post. The woman spoke up before Jim could respond. "I'm Lisa Thompson. That's my daughter Emma. She noticed your dog's behavior first. She's always had a gift with animals. I grew up with working dogs, and I'm telling you, he's been actively tracking for at least the last 15 minutes. Sarah's hand stilled on the leash clip as the timeline hit her. 15 minutes. She'd left Rex alone for 15 minutes, and he'd been trying to alert the entire time. Tracking toward where? Lisa pointed. Southwest tree line. He hasn't deviated his focus once. Whatever he's locked onto, it's in those woods. Emma tugged on her mother's shirt, and when Lisa bent down, the little girl whispered something in her ear. Lisa's expression softened slightly. Emma says. She says the doggy found a scared child. That someone small is hurt in the forest. Sarah looked at the 3-year-old, at her serious face and certain eyes. In any other circumstance, she might have smiled at the child's imagination. But Sarah had learned long ago not to dismiss information just because of its source. Children sometimes saw things adults missed, and more importantly, Rex's behavior was confirming the possibility. Jim, radio dispatch, Sarah ordered, her training taking over completely now. Tell them we have a possible missing person situation, likely a juvenile, possibly in the woods bordering the southwest corner of Riverside Community Park. I'm releasing Rex to track. Request immediate backup and medical support on standby. Jim's eyes widened. Sarah, are you sure? We don't actually know if anyone's missing. Look at him, Jim. Sarah's voice cracked like a whip. Look at my dog and tell me he's wrong. You've seen him work. Have you ever even once seen him give a false alert? Jim looked at Rex. The German Shepherd was practically vibrating with the need to move, every muscle coiled and ready. His nose never stopped working the air, his eyes never left the tree line. No, Jim admitted. Never. Then trust him now. Sarah finished unclipping the leash and stood, one hand on Rex's collar, holding him steady for just a moment longer. Lisa, thank you for noticing. Thank you for pushing. Emma, she looked down at the little girl. Thank you for paying attention when no one else did. Emma nodded solemnly. The doggy is very smart. He's going to save someone. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine at the child's certainty. She turned back to Jim. Make that radio call now, and then I need you to do something else. What? Start checking with festival security. See if anyone's reported a missing child in the last hour. Check with the main information booth. We need to know if someone's looking for a lost kid. Jim was already moving, radio in hand, speaking urgently into it as he jogged toward the security station. Sarah knelt beside Rex, both hands on either side of his face, making eye contact. Is this real, buddy? You got something? Rex's tail wagged once sharply and he whined, a high, urgent sound. Okay, I trust you. Such, find them. The German word for search was all Rex needed. The moment Sarah released her grip on his collar, he exploded forward like he'd been shot from a cannon. The leash trailed behind him as he raced across the open grass toward the tree line, Sarah sprinting to keep up, her hand already on her radio. Dispatch, this is K9 Unit Martinez. Rex is actively tracking. I'm pursuing into the woods at the southwest corner of the park. Time is 12:14 p.m. The dispatcher's calm voice came back. Copy that, Martinez. Backup is en route, ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes? Sarah hoped that would be fast enough. Behind them, Lisa scooped Emma up into her arms. You did good, baby girl. You did so good. Emma watched the officer and the dog disappear into the tree line. I hope they find the person soon, she said quietly. I think they're really scared. Lisa hugged her daughter tighter, her own heart pounding. A small crowd had gathered, festival goers who'd noticed the commotion. They stood in clusters, whispering and pointing toward the woods, uncertain what was happening but sensing the sudden shift from celebration to emergency. At the security station, Jim was talking rapidly with the head of festival security, a retired police sergeant named Mike Torres. Have you had any reports of missing children in the last hour? Mike was already pulling up his log on a tablet. Define last hour exactly. Anything from 11 a.m. on. Mike scrolled, his face growing more serious. Yeah, actually. Got a call at 11:47 from a Jennifer Allen. Said her 7-year-old son Marcus wandered off. She thought maybe he went to the bathroom or to look at one of the exhibits, but after 20 minutes she couldn't find him and called it in. Jim's stomach dropped. 11:47. That would have been right around when Rex started alerting, maybe even before they'd noticed. Description: African-American male, 7 years old, wearing a red Pokémon t-shirt and blue shorts. Last seen near the main stage area around 11:30. Jim grabbed his radio. Martinez, this is Davies. We have a confirmed missing child. 7-year-old male missing since approximately 11:30. Parents reported it at 11:47. Static, then Sarah's voice, breathless from running. Copy that. Rex is on a scent trail. We're about 100 yards into the woods. Trail is fresh and purposeful. This isn't wandering. This looks like someone walking with direction. Or running, Jim added quietly. Or running, Sarah agreed, her voice tight. In the woods, Sarah pushed through undergrowth, following Rex's dark form as he navigated the trail with absolute certainty. The festival sounds were fading behind them, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the sound of Sarah's heavy breathing. The trail itself was narrow and winding, used mostly by local hikers and mountain bikers. Rex suddenly left the trail, plunging into thicker vegetation to the right. Sarah followed without hesitation, branches catching at her uniform, thorns scratching her arms. Rex, wait, slow down. But Rex couldn't slow down. The scent was strong now, fresh, urgent. His entire world had narrowed to this. Follow the scent, find the source, complete the mission. His paws barely touched the ground as he weaved between trees, jumped over a fallen log and pushed through a thick patch of wild roses. And then he stopped. Sarah caught up, breathing hard, and found Rex circling a dense thicket of brush and blackberry brambles. The undergrowth here was thick and tangled, the kind of vegetation that concealed what lay beneath it. Rex was barking now, 3 sharp barks, then a pause, then 3 more. His official "I found it" signal. Sarah pulled out her flashlight even though it was full daylight. The shadows were deep under this canopy. Hello, this is Officer Martinez with the Riverside Police Department. If you can hear me, call out. For a long moment there was nothing but silence and the distant sound of the festival. Sarah's heart pounded. Had Rex been wrong? Was this a false alert after all? Then, faint as a whisper, she heard it. Help, please help me. Sarah's training kicked in with crystalline clarity the moment she heard that small, frightened voice. I'm here, sweetheart. Keep talking so I can find you. What's your name? M. Marcus. The voice was trembling, barely audible over the rustling leaves. I'm stuck. I can't get out. Okay, Marcus. You're doing great. I'm Officer Sarah and this is my partner Rex. We're going to get you out. Keep talking to me, okay? Tell me what happened. Sarah was already pushing through the brambles, her flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. Rex was ahead of her, his nose leading him to a specific spot where the undergrowth seemed thicker than anywhere else. He pawed at the ground, then looked back at Sarah, whining urgently. There was a butterfly, Marcus's voice came again, slightly stronger now that he knew help had arrived. It was really pretty, all blue and black. I followed it and I didn't mean to go so far, but it kept flying and I kept following and then I fell. Sarah reached the spot where Rex was focused and her heart sank. Hidden beneath the wild roses and thick brush was a drainage culvert, a concrete pipe maybe 4 feet in diameter that carried runoff from the park during heavy rains. The opening was almost completely concealed by vegetation, invisible unless you were right on top of it. It would have been so easy for a child to step right into it. Marcus, honey, I found where you are. I'm coming down to you right now, okay? Sarah spoke into her radio as she assessed the situation. Davies, I've located the missing child. He's fallen into a drainage culvert approximately 200 yards southwest of the park boundary. The culvert is 8 to 10 feet deep. Child is conscious and verbal. I'm going in now. Send paramedics to my location. I'll mark the trail. Jim's relieved voice came back immediately. Copy that. Paramedics are en route. Parents have been notified and are asking to come to the scene. Negative on the parents right now, Sarah said, already pulling her emergency markers from her belt and tying bright orange tape to nearby branches. Not until we know the child's condition. Keep them at the booth for now. She knelt at the edge of the culvert, shining her light down. The beam revealed Marcus Allen exactly as his parents had described. Red Pokémon shirt, blue shorts, now both covered in dirt and mud. He was sitting in about 6 inches of stagnant water at the bottom of the concrete pipe, his back against one wall, his left leg extended at an awkward angle. His face was streaked with tears and dirt, and his eyes squinted up at the sudden light. Hi Marcus, Sarah said, keeping her voice calm and warm. I see you down there. Can you tell me what hurts? My ankle, Marcus said, his voice breaking. I landed on it weird and it really hurts. And my hands. He held up his palms, which Sarah could see were scraped raw from his attempts to climb the slick concrete walls. Okay, buddy, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to come down there with you and then we're going to get you out together. Rex is going to stay up here and keep watch. Is that okay? Marcus nodded, then seemed to realize Sarah might not be able to see the gesture in the shadows. Yes, is Rex the dog? I heard him barking. That's right. Rex is the one who found you. He's a very good tracker. Sarah was already maneuvering herself into position to climb down. The culvert wasn't deep, but it was steep and the concrete was slick with algae and moisture. Marcus, I need you to move to the side if you can, away from where I'm coming down. Can you do that for me? I think so. She heard scraping sounds as Marcus shifted his position, grunting in pain. Sarah lowered herself into the culvert feet first, her boots finding purchase on the slippery surface. Rex whined anxiously above, watching his handler disappear into the hole. Stay, Rex. Good boy, stay and guard. The descent took less than 30 seconds, but Sarah was hyper-aware of every movement, every potential for injury. The last thing Marcus needed was for her to fall on him. Her feet touched the bottom with a splash, and she immediately moved to Marcus's side, kneeling in the cold water. Up close she could see he was in better shape than she'd feared, scared, hurt, but alive and alert. His left ankle was already swelling, pushing against his sneaker. His hands were scraped but not seriously bleeding. No signs of head trauma, no difficulty breathing. You're doing so good, Marcus, Sarah said, pulling out her first aid kit. How long have you been down here? I don't know, Marcus said, his voice small. A really long time. I called for help, but nobody came. I tried to climb out, but I kept slipping. I bet that was really scary. Marcus nodded, and then the tears came in earnest. I thought nobody was going to find me. I thought I was going to be here forever. My mom told me not to wander off, but I did, and now she's going to be so mad at me. Hey, Sarah interrupted gently, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Your mom isn't mad. She's worried and she's going to be so happy when she knows you're safe. Parents don't get mad about stuff like this. They just want their kids back safe. She spoke into her radio again. Davies, child appears to have a sprained or possibly fractured left ankle. Multiple abrasions on hands and knees. No signs of head trauma or serious injury. He's cold and scared but stable. How far out are the paramedics? 2 minutes, Jim responded. They're having to come in on foot. The trail's too narrow for the vehicle. Copy. I'm going to start first aid and prepare for extraction. Sarah pulled an emergency blanket from her kit and wrapped it around Marcus's shoulders. This is going to help you warm up. Now I'm going to look at that ankle, okay? I'll be as gentle as I can. Marcus nodded bravely, though his face scrunched up in anticipation of pain. Sarah carefully felt around the swollen ankle, noting Marcus's sharp intake of breath when she touched certain spots. Good news is I don't think it's broken. Bad news is it's definitely sprained, and it's going to hurt for a while. The paramedics will take better care of it than I can. Above them, Rex barked sharply, his alert that someone was approaching. Sarah's hand went instinctively to her weapon before she heard Jim's voice. "Martinez, paramedics incoming." "Down here," Sarah called back. Moments later, two paramedics appeared at the edge of the culvert, a woman in her 40s and a younger man. "What have we got?" the woman asked, already assessing the situation. 7-year-old male Marcus Allen, Sarah reported efficiently. Fell approximately 8 feet into this culvert roughly 1 hour ago. Primary complaint is left ankle pain with significant swelling. Secondary abrasions to both hands. Patient is alert, oriented, and vitals appear stable, though I haven't taken them formally. Possible mild hypothermia from sitting in cold water. "Good work, officer. We'll take it from here. Jake, get the basket stretcher. We're going to need to bring him up secured." The next 20 minutes were a carefully orchestrated extraction. The paramedics lowered a specialized basket stretcher, essentially a rigid board with straps, into the culvert. Sarah helped position Marcus on it, talking to him the entire time, distracting him from the pain and fear. "Did you know that Rex can smell things from over a mile away?" Sarah said as they secured the straps across Marcus's chest and legs. "The part of his brain that processes smells is about 40 times bigger than the same part in our brains." "Really?" Marcus asked, his attention momentarily diverted from what was happening to his body. "Really? And he can tell the difference between identical twins just by smell. Isn't that cool?" "That's really cool," Marcus agreed. "Is he going to be here when I get up?" "He's not going anywhere. He wants to make sure you're okay." With Sarah guiding from below and the paramedics pulling from above, they slowly raised the stretcher out of the culvert. It was delicate work. Any sudden movement could jar Marcus's injured ankle or risk dropping the stretcher entirely. But 15 minutes later, Marcus Allen emerged into the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, still strapped to the stretcher but out of the hole. The moment Marcus was clear, Rex approached the stretcher and gently sniffed the boy's hand. Marcus's face lit up despite his pain and fear. "Hi, Rex," he said softly. "Thank you for finding me." Rex's tail wagged and he licked Marcus's scraped palm with surprising gentleness. Sarah climbed out of the culvert, muddy and wet from the knees down, and stood beside her partner. "He says you're welcome. You know what? I think Rex would like you to give him a pat if you're up for it." Marcus reached out with his less injured hand and ran his fingers through Rex's thick fur. "Good dog," he whispered. "You're such a good dog." The female paramedic was already starting an IV and taking vital signs. "Okay, Marcus, we're going to carry you back to the ambulance and take you to the hospital. Your parents are going to meet us there. That ankle needs X-rays." As they prepared to move him, Sarah pulled out her phone and took a quick photo of Marcus petting Rex. She had a feeling the boy would want to remember this later, once the fear had faded and the story became something else entirely. "Officer Martinez," Marcus said as the paramedics began carrying the stretcher back toward the trail. "Yeah, buddy. I'm sorry I wandered off. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Sarah walked alongside the stretcher, one hand resting on Rex's head. "You know what I think? I think you gave Rex a really important job to do today. He trained for years to find people who need help, and today he got to use all that training to find you. So in a way, you helped him do what he loves most." Marcus smiled at that, a real smile that reached his eyes. "I helped Rex." "Absolutely. You're basically partners now." As they emerged from the woods back onto the festival grounds, a crowd had gathered. Jim was keeping people back, maintaining a perimeter. But Sarah could see Jennifer and Robert Allen at the front, held back by another officer, their faces masks of desperate hope and fear. The moment they saw the stretcher, Jennifer Allen's knees buckled. Her husband caught her and they both surged forward. The officer let them through. "Marcus," Jennifer was crying and laughing simultaneously. "Oh God, baby, you're okay, you're okay." "I'm sorry, Mom," Marcus said, and then he was crying too. "I'm sorry I went into the woods, I'm sorry." SHH, baby, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters except you're safe." Sarah stepped back, giving the family their moment, her hand still resting on Rex's head. The German shepherd sat beside her, calm now, his job complete. She knelt down and hugged him, whispering into his fur, "Good boy, Rex, such a good boy." Ambulance sat waiting at the edge of the park, its rear doors open like welcoming arms. Paramedics transferred Marcus from the basket stretcher to their wheeled gurney with practiced efficiency, but Jennifer Allen refused to let go of her son's hand for even a second. Her grip was so tight that Marcus actually winced, though whether from his mother's desperate hold or his injured ankle, it was hard to tell. "Ma'am, we need to get him to Riverside General for x-rays," the female paramedic said gently. "You can ride with us, but we need to move now." Jennifer nodded without speaking, tears still streaming down her face. Robert Allen stood beside them, one hand on his wife's shoulder, the other running through his hair repeatedly, a gesture of residual panic that his body couldn't quite let go of even though the crisis had passed. "Mr. and Mrs. Allen," Sarah approached the family, Rex at her side. Both parents turned to look at her, and Sarah saw the moment they truly registered who she was, the officer who had found their son. Robert's face crumpled. "Officer, I don't know how to." His voice broke completely. He took a shuddering breath and tried again. "Thank you, God, thank you so much." "Rex is the one who found him," Sarah said, deflecting the gratitude in the way she always did. "I just followed where he led me." But Jennifer wasn't having it. She turned from Marcus for the first time since he'd emerged from the woods, and before Sarah could react, the woman had pulled her into a fierce hug. "You brought my baby back," Jennifer whispered against Sarah's shoulder. "You brought him back to me." Sarah returned the embrace, feeling the woman's entire body shaking with the aftermath of fear and relief. "He's a brave kid. He stayed calm, he called for help. He did everything right." Jennifer pulled back, wiping her eyes. "The butterfly," she said with a watery laugh. "He's been obsessed with butterflies since he was 3 years old. I should have known. I should have been watching him more carefully." "Mom, stop," Marcus said from the gurney, his voice surprisingly firm for a 7-year-old who'd just been through a traumatic experience. "It's not your fault. It's my fault. I know the rules. I broke them." Robert moved to the gurney, leaning down to kiss his son's forehead. "We're not talking about fault right now. We're just thankful you're safe. But Marcus," his voice grew more serious, "do you understand how dangerous that was? How easily this could have ended differently?" Marcus nodded, his eyes welling up again. "I was so scared, Dad. I kept thinking about those stories you told me, about how people get lost in the woods and nobody finds them for days and days. I thought I was going to be one of those people." "But you weren't," Sarah interjected, kneeling beside the gurney so she was at Marcus's eye level. "You know why? Because you were smart. You called for help, even when it seemed like nobody could hear you. And because Rex is very, very good at his job." As if on cue, Rex moved closer to the gurney, resting his chin on the edge near Marcus's hand. The boy's face brightened despite his pain and fear. "Can I really pat him again?" "Absolutely." Sarah watched as Marcus ran his fingers through Rex's fur with something approaching wonder. "How did he know I was there?" Marcus asked. "I was so far away and there were so many people at the festival." Sarah smiled. "That's what makes police dogs special. Rex has been trained since he was a puppy to detect human scent. When you walked past our booth earlier, do you remember seeing the police dogs?" Marcus thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, there was a big dog doing tricks. Was that Rex?" "That was Rex. You probably walked right past him, maybe even stopped to watch. And without even knowing it, you left your scent behind. Later, when you didn't come back, when you got stuck in that culvert, Rex picked up on the fact that your scent trail led away from the festival and into the woods but never came back. That told him something was wrong. Dogs can do that. Marcus's eyes were wide with amazement. This dog can, Sarah said, scratching Rex behind the ears. And because one very observant little girl noticed that Rex was trying to tell us something important, we were able to find you much faster than we would have otherwise. What little girl? Jennifer asked. Sarah glanced back toward the crowd that had gathered at the edge of the clearing. She could see Lisa Thompson standing there, Emma in her arms, both watching the scene unfold. Her name is Emma. She's 3 years old, and she was the first person to realize that Rex wasn't just excited, he was working. She convinced her mother, who convinced Officer Davies, who called me back. If it wasn't for Emma paying attention, it might have taken us much longer to realize someone was missing. Robert followed Sarah's gaze to where Lisa and Emma stood. Without a word, he walked over to them. Sarah watched as he approached, saw Lisa's expression shift from curiosity to understanding as Robert began speaking to her. She couldn't hear what was being said, but she saw Robert wipe his eyes, saw Lisa shake her head as if to say it was nothing, saw Emma's small arms reach out to accept a hug from the grateful father. "Okay, folks, we really need to get moving," the paramedic said, his tone kind but firm. "That ankle needs proper medical attention, and we need to check for any injuries we might have missed in the field." Jennifer climbed into the ambulance, settling onto the bench seat beside Marcus's gurney. Robert hurried back, pausing only to shake Sarah's hand with both of his. "We'll never forget this," he said. "Never. Thank you both." He looked down at Rex, who sat patiently beside his handler. "Especially you, buddy. You're a hero." As the ambulance doors closed and the vehicle pulled away, lights flashing but sirens silent, the crowd that had gathered began to disperse. The festival was still in full swing. The band on the main stage had never stopped playing. The food vendors were still calling out their specials. Children were still running and laughing. Life had continued its normal rhythm even as, in the woods beyond the park, a small drama of fear and rescue had played out. Jim approached Sarah looking sheepish. "I should have noticed sooner. I should have paid more attention to Rex's behavior." Sarah shook her head. "Don't beat yourself up. Rex was secured, the situation seemed normal, you had no reason to think something was wrong. The important thing is that when Lisa Thompson spoke up, you listened. You trusted her judgment and you called me back. That's what mattered." "Still," Jim said, "I'll be more observant in the future. I've worked with K-9 units for years and I wasn't paying attention." "None of us were," Sarah admitted, "except for a 3-year-old girl." She looked over to where Lisa and Emma were still standing, now talking with other festival goers who wanted to know what had happened. "I need to go thank them properly." Sarah walked over with Rex at her side. The small crowd parted to let them through. Emma's face lit up when she saw the big German shepherd approaching. "Officer Martinez," Lisa said, "is the little boy okay?" "He's going to be fine. Sprained ankle, some scrapes, but nothing serious. He's on his way to the hospital now with his parents." Sarah knelt down to Emma's level. "And you know what? His daddy told me that he came over and thanked you for noticing that Rex was trying to tell us something. Is that true?" Emma nodded seriously. "The man was crying. He said I saved his little boy." "He's right," Sarah said softly. "Emma, do you know what you did today? You saved someone's life. Because you paid attention when the grown-ups weren't paying attention. Because you understood what Rex was trying to say when nobody else did." "I like animals," Emma said simply, as if that explained everything. And in a way it did. "Well, Rex likes you too. Would you like to give him a special pat, as a thank you from him?" Emma's eyes went wide. She looked at her mother for permission. Lisa nodded, smiling. "Go ahead, sweetie." Emma reached out with both small hands and stroked Rex's head. The German shepherd, who had been trained to remain alert and professional in all circumstances, who rarely showed affection to anyone but Sarah, leaned into the little girl's touch and sighed contentedly. "He's so soft," Emma whispered, "and so smart. He's the smartest dog in the whole world." "He just might be," Sarah agreed. "Emma, how would you feel about coming to visit us at the police station sometime? You and your mom could come see where Rex lives and trains. Maybe watch him practice some of his skills." Emma's face transformed with pure joy. "Really, really, really." "Really, really," Sarah confirmed, pulling out her card and handing it to Lisa. "Give me a call anytime. We'd love to have you." Lisa took the card, her eyes glistening. "Thank you, Officer Martinez. This has been, I don't even know what to call this day." "Extraordinary," Sarah supplied. "That's what I'd call it. Your daughter is extraordinary." As Sarah and Rex made their way back to their booth, the festival continuing around them, Sarah found herself thinking about the chain of events that had led to Marcus Allen's rescue. If Emma hadn't been observant, if Lisa hadn't trusted her daughter's instincts, if Jim hadn't been willing to question his own judgment, if Rex hadn't been so well trained and so determined, if any link in that chain had broken, the outcome could have been so different. Her radio crackled. "Martinez, this is Chief Williams. Heard we had some excitement at the festival. Good work out there." "Thank you, sir. But the credit really goes to Rex and a very observant 3-year-old civilian." "So I heard. The Allen family has already called the station. They want to do something special to say thank you. I told them we'd be in touch. For now, take the rest of the day. You and Rex have earned it." Sarah looked down at her partner, who looked back up at her with those intelligent brown eyes. "What do you say, buddy? Ready to call it a day?" Rex's tail wagged in agreement. But as they walked toward their vehicle, Sarah noticed something. Marcus's red Pokémon cap, which must have fallen off during his fall into the culvert. She picked it up, knowing that someday soon, when the fear had faded and the story had transformed from trauma into triumph, this would be a treasured memento. She tucked it carefully into her patrol bag. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 3 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon, Sarah Martinez stood in the sterile hallway of Riverside General Hospital, Rex sitting patiently at her side. She'd changed out of her patrol uniform into civilian clothes, jeans and a simple blue blouse, not wanting to draw unnecessary attention or make the visit feel too formal. In her hand, she carried a small gift bag containing Marcus's Pokémon cap, freshly cleaned, along with a photo she'd had printed and framed. The image of Marcus in the basket stretcher, his hand reaching out to touch Rex's fur, both of them looking at each other with what could only be described as mutual respect. "You ready for this, buddy?" Sarah asked, looking down at Rex. The German Shepherd's tail thumped once against the polished floor. He knew they were in a hospital. The smells alone told him that, but he also knew they were here for a specific purpose. Rex had an uncanny ability to sense when his presence was needed for comfort rather than work. "Room 412. Sarah knocked gently on the partially open door. "Come in," a woman's voice called. Sarah pushed the door open to find Marcus propped up in the hospital bed, his left leg elevated in a cast that was already covered in colorful signatures and drawings. Jennifer Allen sat in a chair beside the bed, looking far more composed than she had 3 days ago, though her eyes still carried the shadow of the fear she'd experienced. Robert Allen stood by the window, and he turned as Sarah entered. "Officer Martinez," Marcus's face lit up with genuine excitement. "And Rex, Mom, it's Rex." Jennifer stood immediately, her hand going to her chest. For a moment, she simply stared at Sarah and Rex, her eyes filling with tears. Then she crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pulled Sarah into another fierce embrace. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said, her voice thick with emotion. "I keep telling myself I'm not going to cry anymore, that I need to be strong and grateful and move on, but every time I see you or think about what you did," her voice broke. Sarah returned the embrace, understanding in a way that most people couldn't. She'd been on the other side of situations like this before, had delivered both good news and bad news to parents whose children had been in danger. "You don't have to apologize for feeling things," Sarah said softly. "What you went through was terrifying. Give yourself permission to process it." Jennifer pulled back, wiping her eyes and laughing at herself. "Look at me. Marcus is fine, he's safe. He's here making jokes about his cast and asking when he can go back to school to show it off, and I'm the one falling apart." "That's because you're the parent," Sarah said gently. "Kids are resilient. They bounce back. Parents carry the weight of what could have happened. That's harder to let go of." Robert approached, shaking Sarah's hand warmly. "We wanted to see you again, to thank you properly. The hospital staff said you called asking if we'd be okay with a visit." "I hope that's all right," Sarah said. "I brought something for Marcus, and I thought Rex might like to see how his rescue mission turned out." "More than all right," Robert assured her. "Please come sit." Sarah moved to the bedside, Rex following closely. Marcus's eyes never left the German shepherd. "Hi, Rex," the boy said, his voice filled with affection. "Do you remember me?" As if in answer, Rex moved closer to the bed and gently placed his chin on the edge of the mattress, near Marcus's hand. The boy immediately began stroking the dog's head, his face breaking into a wide smile. "The doctors said my ankle was definitely sprained but not broken," Marcus announced proudly. "I have to wear this cast for 6 weeks and then I have to do physical therapy. I told them I didn't mind because it means I'll be stronger afterward, like a superhero recovering from a battle." Sarah smiled at his attitude. "That's exactly the right way to look at it, and speaking of battles, I brought you something." She held out the gift bag. Marcus took it eagerly, pulling out the framed photograph first. His eyes widened as he stared at the image of himself and Rex. "This is from when you rescued me," he said quietly. "I look really scared." "You were scared," Sarah acknowledged, "but you were also brave. Do you see your hand there reaching out to Rex? Even though you were hurt and frightened, you still wanted to connect with the dog who found you. That takes courage." Marcus studied the photo for a long moment, then looked up at his parents. "Can we hang this in my room?" "Absolutely," Jennifer said, her voice wavering again. Marcus reached back into the bag and pulled out his Pokémon cap. "My hat. I thought I lost it forever." "It fell off during the rescue," Sarah explained. "I cleaned it up for you, thought you might want it back." Marcus immediately tried to put it on, though it sat awkwardly over his hospital mustache hair. He didn't seem to care. "This is my lucky hat," he told Sarah seriously. "My grandpa gave it to me before he died. I was so sad when I thought I'd lost it." Jennifer's hand went to her mouth, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Robert moved to stand behind his wife's chair, placing both hands on her shoulders. "Your grandpa had good taste," Sarah said. "Pokémon's a classic." For the next 20 minutes, they talked. Marcus told the story of his adventure from his perspective, how the butterfly had been the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, iridescent blue with black edges, how he'd been so focused on it that he hadn't realized how far he'd walked, how he'd stepped on what he thought was solid ground only to have it give way beneath him. "I fell so fast," Marcus said, absently petting Rex as he spoke. "I remember thinking Mom's going to kill me right before I hit the bottom, and then my ankle hurt so bad that I couldn't think about anything except the pain. I tried to climb out, but the walls were too slippery. That's when I got really scared." "What did you do when you got scared?" Sarah asked. "I remembered what my dad always says. When you're in trouble, the most important thing is to stay calm and think. So I tried to calm down. I stopped crying after a while because it wasn't helping. I called for help as loud as I could, and then I just waited. I told myself that someone would find me, that I just had to be patient." Robert's grip on Jennifer's shoulders tightened. Sarah could see the pride and pain warring in both parents' faces, pride that their son had remembered their lessons, pain that he'd had to use them in such a terrifying situation. "You did everything right," Sarah told Marcus. Every single thing. That's why this story has a happy ending. It's a happy ending because of Rex, Marcus corrected. And because of that little girl, Emma. Is she really only 3 years old? She is, Sarah confirmed. Actually, there's going to be a small ceremony at the police station next week. The department wants to recognize Emma for her observant actions, and we thought it might be nice if you could be there. If you're feeling up to it, of course. Marcus's eyes went wide. Really, I could meet her and thank her. If your parents think you'll be ready, Sarah said, looking at Jennifer and Robert. We'll be there, Jennifer said firmly. We've been wanting to meet her and her mother, to thank them properly. There's something else, Robert said, straightening up. We've been talking, Jennifer and I, about what happened, about how close we came to losing Marcus, and about all the people who helped bring him back to us safely. We want to do something, Jennifer continued. Something meaningful. We've been researching K-9 units, and we learned that a lot of their equipment and training has to be funded through donations and fundraising. Is that true? Sarah nodded. A lot of departments struggle with K-9 program funding, yes. The dogs themselves, the training, the equipment, the veterinary care, it adds up quickly. We want to make a donation, Robert said. A significant one, in Rex's name, to help support the K-9 unit and maybe help train more dogs like him, dogs that can save other children like they saved ours. Sarah felt her throat tighten with emotion. That's incredibly generous. I know the department would be honored to accept that donation. It's not generosity, Jennifer said, reaching out to take Sarah's hand. It's gratitude. It's us trying to find a way to express something that words can't really capture. You gave us our son back, Officer Martinez. Rex gave us our son back. How do you thank someone for that? How do you put that into words? Sarah squeezed Jennifer's hand, finding her own eyes growing damp. You just did. Marcus, who had been quietly listening to this exchange, spoke up. When I grow up, I want to be a police officer with a dog, just like you and Rex. Sarah smiled at him. Then you'd better study hard and stay out of trouble, and maybe stay away from mysterious butterflies. Marcus laughed, the sound bright and genuine. I'm definitely going to be more careful about following butterflies, but I'm never going to forget that butterfly because it led to me meeting Rex, and Rex is the best dog in the entire world. As if understanding he was being praised, Rex's tail began wagging, thumping rhythmically against Sarah's leg. A nurse appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Marcus needs his medication and then some rest. Sarah stood, understanding it was time to leave. We should get going anyway, but it was really good to see you, Marcus. I'm glad you're doing so well. Will you come visit again? Marcus asked, a hint of anxiety in his voice. Will you bring Rex? I promise, Sarah said, and you'll see us both at the ceremony next week. As Sarah and Rex made their way out of the room, Jennifer followed them into the hallway. Officer Martinez, wait. Sarah turned. Jennifer stood there, wrapping her arms around herself as if fighting to hold herself together. I need you to understand something. I need you to know that every night since this happened, I lie in bed and I think about all the ways this could have ended differently. I think about what it would feel like to be the mother who never got her child back. I think about other mothers who have lived that nightmare. And then I think about you and Rex and Emma, and I'm so grateful that I don't have to know what that feels like. Tears were streaming down Jennifer's face now, and she made no effort to wipe them away. But I also feel guilty, she continued. Guilty that my son came home and other mothers' children didn't. Guilty that I got this miracle when someone else is living the nightmare. Does that make sense? Sarah stepped forward and pulled Jennifer into one more embrace. It makes perfect sense, but you can't carry guilt for being blessed. What you can do, what you are doing, is honor that blessing by helping make sure more stories end the way yours did. That donation you're making, that will train more K-9s, which means more children found, more families reunited. You're turning your miracle into hope for others. That's not guilt. That's grace. Jennifer sobbed against Sarah's shoulder, releasing days of pent-up emotion. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were red, but something in her expression had shifted. She looked lighter somehow, as if Sarah's words had lifted a weight she didn't know she was carrying. "Thank you," Jennifer whispered, "for everything." Sarah walked out of the hospital with Rex at her side, the afternoon sun warm on her face. As they approached her vehicle, her radio crackled with a call for another K-9 unit. Somewhere else in the city, someone else needed help. Someone else's story was unfolding. She looked down at Rex, who looked back up at her with those wise, knowing eyes. "Ready to go back to work, partner?" Rex's tail wagged. He was always ready. The following Tuesday morning dawned clear and bright over Riverside, the kind of perfect California day that made people feel optimistic about the world. At the Riverside Police Department headquarters, a small crowd was already gathering in the community room by 9:30, even though the ceremony wasn't scheduled to start until 10. Sarah Martinez arrived early, as always, with Rex freshly groomed and wearing his official K-9 unit vest. She'd spent extra time that morning brushing his coat until it gleamed, trimming the fur around his paws, even cleaning his teeth. If there was ever a day for Rex to look his absolute best, this was it. "Someone's looking handsome," Officer Jim Davies commented as Sarah walked through the door. Jim had been helping set up chairs and a small podium, though I think he knows he's the star of the show today. Sarah smiled, running her hand over Rex's head. "He's not the only star. Where's the Thompson family?" "Not here yet. Neither are the Allens. You're early as usual." "Can't help it. Punctuality was drilled into me at the academy." Sarah surveyed the room. Department brass had decided to keep the ceremony small and intimate, just family, the officers involved, and a single reporter from the local newspaper. The Riverside Gazette had run a front-page story 3 days ago with the headline "Toddler's Observation Saves Missing Child," and the community response had been overwhelming. Chief Michael Williams entered the room, his uniform crisp and decorated with his years of service. He was a large man in his late 50s with silver hair and a presence that commanded attention. "Martinez," he greeted her with a nod. "Rex, you both ready for this dog and pony show?" He paused. "No pun intended." Sarah laughed. "We're ready, sir." "Good, because this is important, not just for the department's public image, though that matters, but because people need to be reminded that heroism comes in all forms, that paying attention matters, that a 3-year-old child can make a difference." Chief Williams looked at her seriously. "What happened last week was remarkable, Sarah. The chain of events, the timing, the outcome. If any single link had broken." "I know, sir," Sarah interrupted gently. "Believe me, I've thought about nothing else for the past week." At 9:45, the Thompson family arrived. Lisa walked in holding Emma's hand, and Sarah noticed that the little girl was wearing what was clearly her absolute fanciest dress, navy blue with white polka dots, paired with shiny black shoes and a white headband. Emma's eyes went wide when she saw the police station's interior, taking in the official seal on the wall, the flags, the photos of officers past and present. Then she saw Rex. "The doggy." Emma pulled her hand free from her mother's grasp and started forward, then stopped herself, remembering her manners. She looked up at Sarah. "Can I say hi?" "Of course," Sarah said warmly. "Rex has been waiting to see you." Emma approached slowly, respectfully, the way children do when they've been taught to treat animals with care. She held out her hand for Rex to sniff, and when he gently licked her fingers, her face transformed with pure joy. "Hi, Rex. You look so pretty today. Did someone brush you?" "I brushed him extra special this morning," Sarah told her, "because today is a very important day." Lisa approached, looking slightly overwhelmed. "Officer Martinez, thank you for inviting us. Emma's been talking about nothing else for days." "Thank you for coming, and please call me Sarah." Before they could continue the conversation, the Allen family arrived. Marcus came through the door on crutches, his casted legs swinging carefully with each step, followed by his parents. The 7-year-old had improved dramatically in just a week. His color was good, his eyes were bright, and he moved with the confident energy of a child who'd turned his trauma into a story he could tell with pride. "Rex," Marcus called out, his face lighting up. For a moment, Sarah worried about how Rex would handle 2 children vying for his attention, but her partner proved once again why he was exceptional. He greeted Marcus with enthusiasm but remained calm, allowing both children to pet him simultaneously, his tail wagging as he looked from one to the other. "Are you Emma?" Marcus asked the little girl beside him. Emma nodded shyly. "I'm Marcus. You're the one who noticed Rex was trying to tell everyone about me. My mom and dad said you saved my life." Emma considered this seriously. "I just listened to the doggy. He was the one who knew." Marcus grinned. "Yeah, but nobody else listened. You did. That makes you a hero." Emma's face flushed with pleasure at this declaration from the older boy. Jennifer Allen approached Lisa Thompson, and the 2 women embraced like old friends, though they'd never met before this moment. "Thank you," Jennifer said simply. "Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for trusting your daughter. Thank you for being brave enough to speak up." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm just so glad Marcus is okay. When I saw him come out of those woods, when I saw him alive and alert, I felt so grateful that Emma had noticed, that we'd said something." Robert Allen joined the conversation, shaking Lisa's hand warmly. "We meant what we said about the donation. We've already spoken with Chief Williams. The K-9 unit is getting a substantial contribution in honor of Rex and in honor of your daughter's observation." At exactly 10 o'clock, Chief Williams called the gathering to order. The small crowd, perhaps 30 people in total, settled into their chairs. Sarah stood to one side with Rex, while the Thompson and Allen families sat in the front row. "Good morning, everyone," Chief Williams began, his voice carrying easily through the room. "We're gathered here today to recognize an extraordinary series of events that took place at our community festival last week. Events that remind us why we serve, why we train, and why every member of our community, from the youngest to the oldest, plays a vital role in keeping each other safe." He went on to describe the incident in detail: Marcus's disappearance, Rex's alert, Emma's observation, the rescue. As he spoke, Sarah watched the faces in the crowd. Some people were hearing the full story for the first time, and she could see the emotion playing across their features: concern, relief, admiration. "Officer Sarah Martinez," Chief Williams said, turning to Sarah, "would you and Rex please come forward?" Sarah walked to the front of the room with Rex at her side. The German Shepherd sat perfectly at attention, his eyes forward, every inch the professional police dog. "Officer Martinez, you and K-9 Rex have been partners for 3 years. In that time, you've assisted in 37 arrests, tracked down 12 missing persons, and served this community with distinction. Last week, you added another successful rescue to that record. On behalf of the Riverside Police Department and the Allen family, I'd like to present Rex with a unit citation for exceptional service." Chief Williams held up a small medal on a blue ribbon, designed to attach to Rex's vest. Sarah accepted it, then clipped it to Rex's collar. The room erupted in applause. "More importantly," Chief Williams continued once the applause died down, "I want to recognize that this rescue was successful because of a chain of people who did the right thing at the right time. Officer Davies, who listened when a civilian expressed concern. Officer Martinez, who trusted her partner's instincts. Lisa Thompson, who trusted her daughter's observations. And most especially Emma Thompson, who noticed what adults missed and insisted on being heard." He gestured for Lisa and Emma to come forward. Lisa had to gently push Emma, who had suddenly become shy in front of all these people. They walked to the front, Emma holding tightly to her mother's hand. Chief Williams knelt down to Emma's level, his imposing figure somehow becoming gentle and approachable. "Emma, you're only 3 years old, but you did something last week that many adults couldn't do. You paid attention. You understood what a trained police dog was trying to communicate, and you didn't give up until the grown-ups listened to you. Because of that, Marcus Allen is safe and home with his family." Emma looked at Marcus in the front row, who gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up. "On behalf of the Riverside Police Department," Chief Williams continued, "I'd like to present you with this Junior K-9 Handler Certificate and Badge. This certifies that you are an honorary member of our K-9 unit, and that you and Rex are officially partners." He handed Emma a framed certificate with her name written in elegant calligraphy, along with a small plastic badge that said Junior K-9 Handler with a number on it. 1. Emma's eyes went wide as she accepted both items. "I'm really Rex's partner?" she asked in a small voice. "You really are," Chief Williams confirmed. "And that means Rex is going to need you to help him sometimes, to pay attention when he's working, to notice things other people might miss. Can you do that?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir, I can do that." The room applauded again, and this time Emma smiled widely, holding up her certificate and badge for everyone to see. But Chief Williams wasn't finished. He stood and addressed the full gathering. "The Allen family has generously chosen to make a substantial donation to our K-9 unit in honor of this rescue. This donation will help us train new K-9 officers, purchase equipment, and ensure that dogs like Rex can continue to serve and protect our community for years to come." Robert Allen stood from his seat. "If I may say something." Chief Williams nodded, stepping aside. Robert walked to the front, his voice thick with emotion. "A week ago, my wife and I lived through every parent's worst nightmare. Our son was missing, and with each passing minute, the possibilities became darker and more terrifying. We were preparing ourselves for news we couldn't bear to hear." He paused, collecting himself. "But that's not the news we got. Because of a trained police dog, a dedicated officer, and a 3-year-old girl who paid attention, our son came home. And now, every night when I tuck Marcus into bed, when I hear him breathing in the darkness, when I know he's safe under our roof, I think about Rex and Emma and Officer Martinez." His voice broke completely. Jennifer stood and moved to her husband's side, taking his hand. "We can't change what happened," Robert continued. "We can't go back and watch Marcus more carefully or prevent him from chasing that butterfly. All we can do is move forward and try to ensure that other families get the same miracle we got. That's why we're donating $50,000 to the Riverside Police Department K-9 unit." A collective gasp went through the room. Even Chief Williams looked startled. Clearly, the exact amount hadn't been disclosed to him beforehand. $50,000, Robert repeated, "so that more dogs can be trained, more officers can be equipped, and more children can be brought home safe. Because that's what Rex, Sarah, and Emma gave us. They gave us our child back, and that's worth everything." The room erupted in applause again, this time sustained and heartfelt. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. She looked down at Rex, who looked back up at her with those knowing eyes, and she could swear he understood the magnitude of what was happening. After the formal ceremony ended, people mingled and talked. A photographer from the Riverside Gazette took pictures, Emma and Marcus together with Rex, Sarah and Rex with Chief Williams, the Allen and Thompson families embracing. At one point, Sarah found herself standing with both families, watching as Marcus and Emma sat on the floor, Rex lying between them, both children petting the patient dog. "He's going to be impossible to live with after all this attention," Sarah joked. "He deserves every bit of it," Jennifer said firmly. "He deserves that and so much more." Emma looked up at Sarah. "Can I really help Rex sometimes, like Chief Williams said?" Sarah knelt down beside the little girl. "Absolutely. In fact, I have an idea. How would you and your mom like to come to the station once a month? You could watch Rex train, learn about what police dogs do, maybe even help with some of the demonstrations we do at schools and community events. Emma's face lit up like the sun. Really, really, truly. Really, truly, if it's okay with your mom. Lisa laughed. I don't think I could say no even if I wanted to, which I don't. That sounds wonderful. As the morning wound down and people began to leave, Marcus approached Emma one last time. Hey, Emma, when my cast comes off and I can walk normal again, maybe we could have a playdate. You and me and Rex. Emma looked at her mother for permission. Lisa nodded, smiling. Okay, Emma agreed. We can play with Rex together. And maybe you can teach me how you knew what he was thinking, Marcus added, because I want to be able to understand dogs like you do. Sarah watched this exchange, her heart full. This was what community meant. This was what service meant. Not just the dramatic rescues and the medals and the recognition, but the connections formed, the lives touched, the way one moment of paying attention had created ripples that would continue outward for years to come. As the last of the guests filed out, Sarah stood alone in the community room with Rex. She looked down at the medal clipped to his collar, then at the photo the Gazette photographer had given her, Emma and Marcus on either side of Rex, all three of them smiling. You did good, partner, she told Rex softly. You did really, really good. Rex's tail wagged slowly, contentedly. Outside, the California sun continued to shine. Somewhere in the city, someone else might need help. Another call would come in. Another mission would begin. But for now, in this moment, there was just a handler and her dog, a medal earned, and the knowledge that they'd made a difference. And really, Sarah thought as she headed out to her patrol car, what more could anyone ask for? The end.